So I would like to invite my next co-participant, co-swag warrior, Madhavi, to invite the next speaker of the day. Over to you,
Thank you.
Madhavi.
Thank you. Thank you, Hanish Garu. Thank you, Nandita ma'am, for presenting such important information, how to reverse the diseases according to climate changes, culture, and also explained about different diseases and hormonal problems and their adverse effects and even precautions as well. And daily we consume milk and why is milk so bad and importance of being vegan and plant-based milk products. It's sad to know, ma'am, that cows are used for rendering plants. Thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing an amazing and incredible info, especially during pandemic time. And even you explained about interpretations as well. Thank you, ma'am. Hello, everyone. Warm welcome to one and all to this virtual event on the occasion of World Environment Day on behalf of SWAG, PSSM. Wow, yeah, really, what a lovely session. All our grand speakers shared info about Mother Earth, Gaia, and nature. Really, thank you, masters. I'm Madhvi from Hyderabad, India. I'm associated with PSSM since August 2020. First of all, my heartfelt gratitude and Atma Pranams to our beloved couple, Dr. Brahmarshi Pitamaha Patriji and Swarnamala Patriji. The only motto of PSSM is, Pyramid Spiritual Society's movement is Tan Man Dhan, which means Shakahara Jagat, Dhyana Jagat, and Pyramid Jagat. Um, Nothing but promoting vegetarianism, doing meditation, and construction of pyramids. Pyramids. What is pyramid meditation? Meditation done under a pyramid is called pyramid meditation. Now, even another question arises. What is the actual science of pyramids? How is it connected to spirituality? Pyramids are known as the storehouse of cosmic energy. The concept comes from the shape power found in the pyramid structures across the world, including the time immemorial pyramids of Giza. As we all know, pyramids of Giza. Pira means fire, Amid means middle, literally translating to fire in the middle. Pyramids represent the ancient sacred geometry. Pyramids have a golden angle of 51 degrees, 51 minutes, and 51 seconds. Pyramids energy has the ability to heal and boost our immune system. I think now it's time to welcome our next speaker, who is an ecopreneur, socio-hydrologist. She visited Thailand for Go Green Grow, a world's environment program. She conducts so many workshops for upcoming and even for existing entrepreneurs as well, and teaches about many challenges and how to turn a challenger in entrepreneurship, irrespective of gender. She is none other than Simar Kolikar. She is a water conservationist, entrepreneur, and media professional. She has worked in the water sector since 2015, building communities for lake protection, designing awareness programs on water literacy, and curating mixed media art festivals around water sustainability, justice, and equality through a platform she has founded, Lifetide. Her startup that is now operating in 15 states in India was called the coolest startup in India by Business Today and has already treated 12 million liters of sewage to date. Now, I cordially invite Simar Kohli to speak on topic Parasparo Pagraho Jivanam. All life is bound together by mutual support and interdependence. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining today's session. Platform is all yours. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Madhavi, and thank you, Parinita and Brahmashri Patriji for such a beautiful event that you've organized and bringing in environmentalists and change makers together. The last talk was wonderful by Dr. Nandita Shah. I can't I've seen when I've gone through a plant-based diet and everything, the way I think and how I feel through the day definitely changes a lot. And my introduction to having a more simple diet was when I was preparing for a ceremony, which was which was a healing ceremony organized by some people from South America. And while I learned the importance of plant-based diet, also the importance of fasting and giving the body some break from too much activity, and that was also very useful. So today I would like to share with you a concept which I came across when a friend and I were working with a larger team on a film on Jainism, actually, on the history of Jainism philosophy. And that's when I started understanding nature from a very different perspective, because in these Indic texts, there was a vision of the future and where we could head. And there were suggestions for a very simple way of living, which kind of connected to how we looked at everything. And so if you'd allow me to share the screen. A Jain monk, the leader of the Shwetambar community, taught me how to pronounce Parasparo Pagraho Jivanam, meaning all of life is interconnected and interdependent. And the basis of this relationship is based on mutual respect. So it's how we operate within a system. If you look at Mother Nature, you'll see everything is working in a very peaceful way. Of course, there is all kinds of chaos and there's decay and a whole lot of things that appear in the cycle, but it is a natural cycle. Somehow, as humans, we've managed to separate ourselves from how the rest of nature operates. Like we use very complex elements and we organize ourselves very strangely. And the way we are designing our cities and how we're growing with our industries and everything, it's nothing feels like it's in tune with what is happening in a forest. And even scientists now believe that the earth has gone through so many changes, and we are in that phase where we've entered this new ecological age called the Anthropocene, and that one species has managed to completely put the balance on earth completely off the tipping point. Basically, we are off the tipping point already. And this is even written in our Indic literature from the past, that, this is the age, whether you call it Kali Yuga or however, like in Jainism, they call it Utsarprini, Avsarprini, and in every of these cycles, this ebb and flow, 24 Tirthankars appear. And in Jainism, the first one was Adinath in this age, and the last one being Mahavir. So when Sir was earlier talking about imagine being like Jesus or Buddha, it made me feel like, so what was it about them, or what was it about Mahavir that was very interesting, right? Like what was interesting, that is how his level of consciousness was not just restricted to how we look at things, but it would extend to the rest of nature. When he'd speak, when he'd give a speech, the birds would come, the bees would come, big animals would come, everyone would listen. So these stories are talking about a certain consciousness that people were aspiring to develop and grow within them. So, and that also changed with time, but now we're in the 21st century and like so much has changed. And so what does it mean? And with COVID-19, we've really seen how we are really truly interconnected and impacting each other. So in my learning, the concept of Parasparo Pagraho Jivanam is actually central to not just Jain thought, but how we should be living as a society, in tune. So I'd asked Digambar Muni that what is the essence of Jainism? And he said that essentially take as little as you can and give back as much as you can and live fully. So that was the learning from him. And then another monk taught something else. And we also spoke about nonviolence and how all of this is connected to thought. So as Dr. Nandita Shah was talking about a shift in perception, like to know what is happening around us, to really know what is in that glass of milk. So the question then was like, how do we solve for problems around us when it's the same mindset that created these problems, right? So perhaps it is okay to say that shift in the environmental paradigm would follows shift in perception. So how do we shift that? So what I found in my journey for the last 5-6 years focusing on water is this idea of biomimicry. It's an approach. It is a new way of solving for problems. It's essentially looking at systems in nature, looking at how everything is interconnected, and what can we learn from these systems, and how can we adapt some of nature's best ideas. Our bees and ants, little creatures, the birds, they are the best engineers, the best architects, and perhaps we can learn something from them and develop sustainable technologies for the Anthropocene. So there is Biomimicry Institute, which actually teaches people how we can do this. There's a full design process. And once we are clear on what we're solving for, it's easier to arrive at solutions. And for me, it seemed like everything was connected to water. And I learned that very much when I sat for this healing ceremony with healers from Chile. And when they were praying with the water, it felt like water was alive and was, sensitive as well. It had like, it's not the way we see it. It's a living thing. It has emotions. And maybe we are not that conscious to be relating to these elements that way. But if we observe nature enough, maybe we'll be able to inculcate that way of seeing, which makes us more resilient and adaptive as individuals and families and communities. So, for example, if you look at the traffic on the road and compare it to how ants work, they never land up in traffic jams. They're very efficient. There's a shared goal and they work towards it. And also looking at structure, looking at how, if you see this insect and how his body is designed, you can see a lot of color in it, right? What we do for our clothing is we use a lot of chemicals, and we use all these dyes on various fabrics, and we of course pollute the lakes and rivers. But at the same time, if you look at this colorful insect or a butterfly or a peacock feather, they don't use any pigments, right? It is the structure of the wing, it is the structure of the feather that allows for light to refract in a way that you get the sense of color. So one big learning was, if we try to design fabrics with the same kind of pattern that the leaf makes or the wing makes or the feather, like peacock feather has no color. If you look closely, you'll find a certain warp and weft in a way that it reflects light. So if we mimic that onto fabric or onto the walls of a building, we will not need paint, right? Like, so trying to remove all these things by a nature inspired way of designing. And there have been some innovations at big scales. Just a second, sorry. Yeah, there have been changes at various scales in terms of innovation. And if you look at the bullet train, was inspired by the beak of a kingfisher bird. And what happened when they mimicked that is they managed to cut down on the sound that the train was creating on its way, right? So little things inspired by a whale's fin. There was a turbine system which became more efficient in water because of the way, or in air, the way it was cutting through the air. Even like in the world of IoT, Internet of Things, you have all kinds of sensors and softwares that are trying to mimic how bees work in a swarm. How can we work like a super organism? So my work is now around work. I'm from a communication background, and I'm trying to work with companies and startups and people, communities who are trying to create water sustainability around them. But how can we do it in a nature inspired way? Can we study something from the networks that exist in the undergrowth, like the mycelium mushroom that works so beautifully? Like one would think, like, if we were to engage with the many meditators that your organization has engaged with in 20,000 centers, like, can we work as a network of, like, the fungal network mycelium that has a circulatory system, is running on information, is sharing water and nutrients, and doing key things like breaking things down, or like decomposition, which is very important, decay is important, or even like collaborating, having one tree that connects to so many trees. So there are many ways in which we can design our social systems based on how nature systems work. And if you want to learn more about it, there's a website called asknature.org. It's a big archive and repository of all these strategies and functions that many microorganisms use who have antenna, or why something is shaped a certain way. And so we did also interact with, when I'd met a bunch of people, and there was a design for a sewage treatment plant which mimicked the cow's stomach, because the digestive system was very strong. It would break down grass very effectively, right? Organic matter, to break it down that effectively. So we were mimicking that in underground chambers to give clean water. So again, coming back to, so that has been my journey with the startup so far. It has done a lot of work for the last 3 years. We've been given the support of Habitat for Humanity's International Center for Innovation, the Terwilliger Center of Innovation, which is here in India, has supported the startup. And now the team is going around setting up natural sewage treatment plants everywhere. But now my new work, I'm based in Goa now, and I'm working with a company called Eco Paradigm. And we are really trying to see how we can impact change, and not so much from a for-profit point of view, but really the company's been around for 15 years and have focused on wastewater, natural ways of dealing with waste and wastewater and everything. And I would like to say that there are many scales at which we can impact change. We have to decide what it is that we want to work on. One is basin scale. So when you're looking at a full river rejuvenation or river protection, then you must address deforestation, dam building, the pollutants, the chemicals that are going into our farms, polluting our rivers, the native, non-native trees and fish that are there in our rivers, the disappearing wetlands, which are very important for like the whole system for biodiversity to thrive and for the balance to be met, because wetlands also treat some wastewater and everything. But our cities are growing at a very fast pace, and I haven't even today I won't even be talking about industrial pollutants, but everything that we do, every action has an interaction. Somewhere we are polluting and disrupting balance in nature. And a good approach, sometimes trying to intervene and do things, may not be so useful, but what we can do for sure for long-term ecological sustainability is to create jungles, to create wild forests, shallow ponds, create an oasis, where we plant the local trees and have like marsh and tall grass, and let's not design like in Bangalore we design lakes. The government has been creating tanks, just concrete tanks. That's not really looking at a holistic approach to environmental protection. For that we need jungles and forests and green patches that will remain undisturbed. We don't need to do anything. Mother Nature can take care of herself. Like, we just need to create spaces where there are natural, clean water that is available to drink, which I'm sure everyone here will agree is central to our health and wellness. And which is why, like, the work that I'm doing now with Eco Paradigm, the reason why I'm working with this big company now, as opposed to like, it's a big company because of the impact it's making, but it's a very small team. And I'm learning that food, water, energy, like this is all interconnected, and with waste at the heart of it, because we're constantly creating so much waste. So the perception that we have of waste needs to shift. We need to see it as a resource. So from wet waste, we can make, like from solid waste, we can create energy. With natural food, we can avoid the fertilizers going down. With the treated wastewater, like we want to remove this wastewater concept and make it like renewable water, going back to grow food, going back to give us energy, So I would like to actually ask a question at this moment, because just please hold on. Yeah, I wanted to ask the founders what it is about, like when you got into the meditation part, what was the a sense of what you learned about yourself, the truth about yourself, that you learned that you would not have known if you were not on that path, Patriji. If you could tell us a little bit, and then we can proceed with the discussion.
Yes. Meditation is the mother science of all other sciences. Meditation means management of your energy, management of your thoughts, management of your consciousness, management of your awareness. So, when you manage your energy, your consciousness, your thoughts well, you become a great contributor in the whole world. I like your statement of the Jain Muni who gave to you, take less and give more to others. So that's what meditation does. That's what great Mahavir has done. He has given meditation to everybody. After 12 years of tapas. What did Mahavir give to everybody? He gave meditation to everybody and ahimsa. Two things. Dhyan or ahimsa. So first comes meditation. You must become a Mahavir yourself.
So I had a question to ask actually. While growing up, all these we've looked at so many masters from everywhere. Even in Jainism, there are 24 Tirthankars. He was the 24th one. But what not many people talk about is the 19th Tirthankar, who was actually a woman, as agreed by the Shwetambar sect. Like, why is it that we don't hear of women spiritual victors like that? Why do you think we don't have legends and stories popular enough for that?
We have Baba. We have in every situation we have legendary masters, women. Women are more than men. But this male chauvinism, they has brought those news down.
So who are these figures that we can take inspiration from?
Sita. Read a book, Untold Story of Sita. Have you read that? By Dina Mariam.
Okay.
She went back to the times of Sita in the Treta Yuga and she has written a beautiful book on Sita. She is the grandest master. You must read the book, An Untold Story of Sita.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Thank you for sharing it, Parinita. I'm very grateful for you to invite me today, and I'm sure I'd love to come see you at the center. And I would love to learn how you're managing wastewater in these spaces as well, because that is really a place where we can work together. And if you'd allow me, I'd like to continue with this
Please,
presentation.
continue. They are all waiting too.
Okay, so the juice of everything, right? The rasa, the what excites us, basically. So what I learned through time is, like, we always look out for beauty, for something that moves us, something which which could be abstract also, but also allows for a certain realization, an aesthetic realization of the mind. And that is usually expressed, and it's a spectacle, and it's of divine value, or it's ethereal and sublime and elevated. Today, I wanted to also have insights on what exactly is the complete opposite of that, and what we've learned is it's hidden, and it's something we don't pay any attention to. It's unworthy of human attention. It is anti-aesthetic, anti-divine, temporal, and subsurface. What is that? And that is something which is in the context of water important to address in the cities, and that's sewage. Okay. So I learned living in Bangalore the last 7-8 years that this city, our carrying capacity must be 10 million or 11 million or something, but we are already, I think, nearing 19, 20 million people, right? And we actually, as of today, we produce about 1,500 million liters of sewage every day, of which 93% goes untreated into lakes, that goes further into rivers, polluting the rivers, polluting the natural ecosystem. And we learned so beautifully in the last session how all of this is interconnected, right? So how many of us even think about what happened when we took that dump in the morning? You know, where did it go? So when we talk about sustainability, we look at where everything is coming from and where everything goes, and we try to close the loop and bring in that circularity. And that is what sustainability is about. So, of course, a lifestyle change or mindset change, having a more selfless ambition, being more empathic, striving for something which is not all just material, but the non material as well. All these things kind of add up to how we naturally find solutions around us. And if you see um, how wastewater is being managed today is that it is power based, and a lot of chemicals go into the treatment. It's called STP, a sewage treatment plant, right? So most STPs in India which are giving up because it's completely power run, needs a maintenance team. You have to, and it doesn't make sense that you're burning precious fossil fuel to treat water, right? And still we are in the 21st century, and yet there are manual scavengers from a certain sect of the community. And I really understand how we've not been leaning towards religion and everything in the work we do at this organization, is because that has created more of these divisions and allowed for like caste and class based atrocities, where the Dalit community still goes and cleans up our shit and enters these tanks. I mean, no one should be doing that, right? And which is why now I work with Eco Paradigm, which has been working, which has a fantastic team of environmental engineers for the last 15 years. And what they are saying is the revolution is decentralized. We can't throw all our shit and waste into a landfill and then go there and figure out how do we manage this now. So we have to do it in a decentralized way. And in a very simple way, this is an improvised septic tank that can take gray water, black water, coming from your toilet and kitchen and everything. And it undergoes a treatment, which is I have a video. I don't think we have the time today for it to show how the system works, but we can have a separate detailed session. It is basically trying to say that now anybody can improvise their septic tank so that clean water comes out and things don't stagnate, and you can reuse the water back into the soil. And this is built underground, under the garden or under the driveway or the ramp, or even in like gated communities in Whitefield, in Laughing Waters. You know, the entire gated community sewage is going in these underground tanks, and water is coming out and watering the garden in open areas. In a lake also, you can scale it up to about 1 million liters a day, even more. So all of this, basically all the sewage comes in, flows from one tank to the other on a gravity base, rather than like, you know, using pumps and machinery and things like that, which is not sustainable. So something or the other will give up, and then who's going to run it? So this is like the sewage travels from one tank to other, then it comes out into a wetland, and then finally goes into the lake. And without going much into what I'm doing now with Lifetide, which is a water collective based in Bangalore, we're trying to push for a kind of a lake system which is designed for all of life, and not just humans, not just a concrete tank which is with a jogging park, jogging track around it, as the concept of a lake. We want to change that. We're talking about wild forests, the Devarkadu, the sacred islands, you know, and reviving that way of, I wouldn't go to the extent of saying nature worship, but at least creating spaces where we can be in nature. Maybe we can't be a Buddha today or can't be a Mahavir today without a tree, without sitting comfortably under a tree. So something we can all do with everyone who's present here. And I'm happy to leave my email address behind. If you want to work with Lifetide, we want to work with local communities on like water literacy projects, work with children on how we can, you know, look at water quality, look at all of life and how it's interdependent. And with Eco Paradigm, we are really providing solutions on waste management, particularly on wastewater treatment. We are pioneers in wetland systems. We do it for buildings and for lakes and residential, commercial, hospitals, lots of success stories, about 300 projects across India and overseas. And I'd be very happy to get in touch and go in detail about how biomimicry actually could help us organize better, how we could use some of these strategies, use education and technology, like the edutech space, to build a future together. So basically the message from today is, unless we begin to collaborate, we cannot be working like nature. So we have to work in a collaborative way, and please feel free to reach out. And that's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your gracious presence and sharing such wonderful wisdom about Paraspara Upagraho Jeevanam. As little as you live and learn maximum and live fully. Everything is connected to water, as you said, and you explained very well about how to conserve water in day-to-day life, and about deforestation, dam building, biodiversity, sewage treatment plan, in detail, and how wastewater to be treated for utilization, etc. Thank you, ma'am. Yes, forestation is very much needed in present situation. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.